So good evening, everybody. Tonight we're joined with Mike KD2KOG and Steve KI5ENW from SDRPlay, and they're going to answer any questions that any of the attendees have got. So without further ado, I'll turn you over to Mike and Steve, and they'll be able to give us an insight to the workings of SDR Uno and the devices, etc. So over to you, Mike, Steve. I'll let you take it.
All right. Hello, everyone. Good evening. Thank you for joining us. If you guys have any questions regarding devices or SDR Uno in particular, specifically how do I questions, please raise your hand and let's start. Steve?
I had to remember to unmute myself. Yeah, good evening, everybody, and thanks for showing up. We have no formal agenda, so like Mike said, either type a question in chat or raise your hand if you have any issues you want to have us address while you have us on the line here. And hopefully we can take care of anything you come up with. If it's simple, I might be able to answer it. If it's complicated, Mike will be able to answer it. That's kind of how it usually works.
Who's the first person with their hand up? It looks like Peter.
I think Peter.
Well,
just
the first question, everybody's going to put their hand up.
You're muted, Peter. You got to unmute yourself.
Press the space bar.
There we go. Right, I think I'm okay now. Yeah. Good evening, everybody. And I've just really today, with a lot of help from Andy, got the 7610 and the SDR connected, and both seem to be working okay. I'm very interested in the capability, I believe, it has to be able to reduce noise levels by combining the two receivers. Is that the case? If you can answer me that one, please.
Steve, if he's using the rig and dual tuner, I don't think that's going to be possible when you're when using the transceiver. Steve, am I?
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, normally when we talk about noise reduction, we're talking about diversity tuning, and that would require the two tuners in like an RSP duo, where each tuner is fed by a separate antenna, and then we do some DSP magic to eliminate noise. If you're talking about one tuner in an RSP and one tuner in your transceiver, we have no way of keeping them coherent to do any noise canceling that way. So I suspect what you're looking for is something that we can't do.
Right, thank you.
If you're using the transceiver, though, if you're using the ICOM and you're using the audio from the ICOM, you can use the DSP features, the noise reduction features of the ICOM, because you're just getting a visual representation of the signals on the display. So you could still use what the ICOM offers, or mute the ICOM, use SDR Uno's audio, and use the noise reduction and the noise blinking features built into SDR Uno. But they're not gonna, they don't bounce off each other. They're completely independent.
Right, all understood. Yeah, I'm familiar with the 7610's capability, but I wasn't sure somewhere or another somebody had mentioned that it was possible to use the combination to actually improve the receiver side. Not that I suffer not from external noise. I live in the countryside, but you know, I do like the diversity reception facility on the ICOM rig. But yeah, there's lots of you know, trade-offs you can try, and you know, I'm starting off now with the capability to be able to compare the two receivers, which is going to be interesting.
That certainly you can do, and see, you know, see which noise reduction you like the most. I'm not super familiar with the 7610. I think, Mike, you might know more about it than I do, but is that the one where you can send out the IQ data stream from the 7610 to Uno?
No, that's the 86 something.
Oh, okay.
That's the receiver.
Okay. So basically,
It might have it. As a matter of fact, it might. Let me take a quick peek. Let me mute this so you guys don't hear me.
So that would be another data point you could experiment with, you know, on a regular everyday receiver, like we were discussing. You can compare how the signal sounds going through the tuner in the RSP and into SDR Uno and using our noise reduction and filtering techniques versus taking the signal from the antenna through the circuitry in the 7610 to see how it does. But I know on some of these rigs, they have the ability to output the IQ data. So I think in that case, you can take that data stream and use SDR Uno to process that and see if that helps you any.
There's
Never
no
done
IQ
it,
out.
so couldn't tell you how to do it, but I've heard people experimenting with stuff like that.
I'm looking at it now. On the 7610, there's no IQ out.
Okay. In that case, forgive me for sending us off.
I'll do a little bit more research. If I see anything, I'll let Andy know, and then I'll forward that information over to you. But looking at the picture now, I don't see anything that says IQ out, but it literally take me 10 minutes to go through the manual and see.
Okay.
I think, you know, the key things for most transceivers, 7610 or 7310 or other manufacturers' ones, is the really nice thing about using an RSP and SDR Uno is twofold. Firstly, you can get a real nice big spectrum display up on your computer monitor, which is easier for my aging eyes anyway than trying to peer into the one on the front of the rig itself. The other thing that's really cool is, you know, you could be working on 20 meters on the rig and you can use SDR Uno and see what's going on at 40 meters or even up in the 2 meter band at the same time. So you can effectively be monitoring multiple bands, and you can wait until you see some activity coming up in SDR Uno and then sync that back to the rig, which I think is a really cool feature.
Yeah, I mean, it's early days for me yet, but I'm impressed with the quality of audio. It suits my hearing very much through the SDR, and you know, it's certainly a great feature. It's now available to me. It wasn't available before, so yeah, it's a good move. Thanks to Andy.
I think you'll enjoy it. You know, it's one of these things where people say, well, I don't really need it, or especially the people that say, well, I'm just going to use IF out because I'm only interested in one band. But it's one of these deals where once you start using it, you suddenly realize that it's extremely useful and you have no desire to ever go back. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I can see that. Well, thanks for that. Thank you very much.
Welcome, very welcome. Next hand that's up, it looks like Mr. Mike.
Mr. Mike.
Is that my Mr. Mike from New Hampshire?
From Massachusetts, actually, yes.
Yeah, okay. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you guys? We had just a wonderful Hamfest this weekend, and
You say that. We know it was cold and miserable.
It wasn't miserable. It was cold and windy. Yes, it was.
Yeah.
But that's unusual. We still managed to have a good 2-day old-fashioned, sleepover, camp over Hamfest in the woods of New Hampshire. We do it twice a year, and we've been there before. You know what it's all about. I'm on here today to try to learn a bit more about using this. I'm a old school vacuum tube guy, and this stuff comes hard to me, but I've got a couple of questions. The first one should be fairly simple. When I bring up the software, I get this waterfall thing, and I see some images where you can also have a spectrum view that shows the signals and the relative signal strength by the height of the pip on the screen. How do you switch over to that?
There's two spectrums, the main
let
and the
me share
off.
my screen, okay? Let's see if this is working. I finally got my Windows update done, so let's see what's going on here. And all right, can you see my screen? You should be seeing SDR Uno. And let's see, antenna B. Yeah, there's some signals. Strong signal. Okay, that's a 50 kilowatt monster KRLD with about 10 miles down the road from me. I'm sitting here using an indoor antenna. So, Mike, if I understand what you're saying, you're seeing this bottom part, this waterfall down here, but you're not seeing the spectrum on top of it?
Yeah, I see the waterfall, but not the spectrum
Okay,
view.
well, you see these buttons at the bottom? If I click on WF for waterfall, that's all I get.
Huh?
If I click on SP for spectrum, I just get the spectrum. If I do SP plus WF, I get both.
Oh, well, that's easy enough, isn't it?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. My second question is a little bit more technical. I would like to know if it's possible, and if so, how I would do it, is to be able to put the output of my SDR into my router and to be able to operate the radio with my tablet, with my iPad, or with my phone, rather than on a computer. I use a tablet for just about everything I do. And right now, the only way I can do this is to go online and use another SDR system that's specifically designed for that purpose. But I'd like to be able to do it with the SDRPlay, because the frequency coverage of the SDRPlay is so much greater. We would like to put a couple of these out in various locations around here, so we could listen to, and we want to put the links to these things on our Hamfest website. We have a lot of stuff on the website to bring people over to the website, and then they sort of are told about the Hamfest, and we publicize the Hamfest a great deal. We get people from distance coming to our Hamfest, and we like to have stuff on there, you know, to bring them over. So essentially what I'd like to know is how to do that. Is it possible to do that? And how do I go ahead and do it?
You're asking a question that's got about a dozen different answers. The simplest way today would be not to use SDR Uno, but use another package called SDR Console, which is written by another one of these damn British guys, Simon Brown. Yeah, I think he lives in the West Country, doesn't he? You probably know, Andy. Anyway, that has a server functionality built in. So you run SDR Console locally, connected to your RSP, and it has functions similar but different to SDR Uno. And then remotely, you can run SDR Console again, but you can connect it to the first instance you've got running locally. And so it's like you're there, okay? That's available today. I don't know how much I'm allowed to say, but I am going to be hopefully demonstrating some upcoming features of SDR Uno at the Dayton Hamfest later this month. And if you've ever studied our roadmap, you'll see SDR Uno 2.0 is supposed to have networking capability built in. And that will be coming out later this year, and I'll be doing some demos of that, I hope, at Dayton. So that's another way of doing it. A third way would be, and Michael, correct me if I stray away from this, but you can use something as basic as a Raspberry Pi or something located close to your RSP, and run that as running some software called RSP TCP server, and it effectively becomes a server for your RSP. And then remotely, you can run SDR Uno, the EXTIO version, and you can connect that to the server and get remote control that way. Does that make sense? And you were specifically talking about being in a different location, so that implies wide area network and over the internet. If you just want to be on a local LAN, there are some other solutions that are really good as well. But did I cover the basics there, Mike?
You did. It makes sense to people who are really computer savvy. I'm sort of kind of computer savvy, and I don't understand a lot of the stuff that people talk about when they talk about networking and stuff. But that was one of the things. The other thing is, it would be really nice if I could use my iPad to control the SDRPlay. And the third thing I wanted to mention is it'd be great if there was like a series of tutorials for guys like me who have been ham radio operators for a long time, but aren't right up to speed with some of the newer equipment. I still run vacuum tube equipment here. I've been running this stuff for 40 years. And that's my level of knowledge of this stuff, is what I learned to get my license back in the 1960s, because I don't work in technology at all. So, you know, I'm not current with all the newer stuff. But, you know, I saw a very nicely written series of tutorials for the Yaesu FT857, which, you know, is a do-it-all radio. It's amazing what that radio does, and a lot of the radios that do VHF, UHF, HF, they got menus 4 or 5 levels deep, and they sort of say, this is the task that we're going to teach you today. It's sort of how to enter a frequency in the memory, for example, and they'll tell you exactly what buttons to push and what sequence, because I don't remember the button sequence. I have an ICOM IC7000. I have 2 of them, one in each of my cars. It took me a long time to learn how to operate those things so I'm not distracted when I'm driving. A very long time. And a series of tutorials, either written or video, but I still prefer written stuff, PDFs and stuff. It's just a suggestion, because I know a lot of my friends are really keen on learning more about SDRs, but they're afraid of them because they're afraid of, you know, they're not going to be able to handle the technology. I'll turn it back over to you, Steve.
Okay, I'm not, you know, I think what you're asking for there is something that we try to do in our video and applications catalog at SDRplay.com. Mike, myself, and the other our other colleagues at SDRPlay, we've got literally hundreds of mainly videos, but some of them have accompanying PDFs on just about every aspect of using your SDR, whether it's how to do digital modes, how to set up a pan adapter. One thing we didn't talk about that's involved remote connection is using some neat software called Virtual Here. We've got a video that shows how to do that. There is a video showing how to use the TCP server. So it sounds like either we failed or you haven't found that resource yet. So anyway, I was just trying to think if there are any, you know, you mentioned the iPad. The problem with the iPad is there is no really good SDR software that runs on iOS, okay? So the best you can hope to accomplish, are you familiar with some software called Teamviewer? That's software that Mike and I often use, and we will log remotely into customers' systems where they're having issues. And it enables us to remotely go in and run SDR Uno on their PC and see their RSP, see what the settings are and tweak it and so on and so forth. Now, Teamviewer is multi-platform. So you could run Teamviewer on your iPad and log in remotely to wherever your RSP is running SDR Uno and control it that way. So that would be another option. VNC in its various forms is very common as well. The downside to using VNC is you don't get any audio back. So, you know, when you tune a signal, you're not going to hear what's being tuned. And then, Mike, Mike Ladd, I mean, are you an expert on web SDR?
No, I've used it, but it does have a script that you can install everything from. You can use web SDR. He can use Google Remote Desktop. He can use Windows Remote Desktop, or he could use Splashtop, which also has an iPad application. So that would probably be, I mean, to get it up and running today, I would say just use Splashtop Remote Desktop or Teamviewer and remote right into your desktop.
I tend to say Teamviewer just because we use it so much for debugging, and it's pretty easy to use. It's free unless you're using it for commercial purposes. So I don't know, Mike, Mr. Mike, did that at least point you in the right direction? Do you want me to show you the website? And see if
I can find them. Thank you. Yes. I've used Teamviewer on a couple of occasions, but I tend to be hesitant to let anybody get into my machine, I guess, for security reasons.
Well, wait a minute. You said you want to allow remote access, and now you're worried about security. If it's just for your own use remotely, when you set up TeamViewer, there's a password associated with it, and every time you restart TeamViewer, the password changes. So the only people that are going to have access to your computer and your RSP is going to be whoever you give that password to during that one session.
Well, I understand all that, and it's just you asked if I was familiar with it, and my familiarity with it in the past is sort of that. But I can find the websites and stuff. I just was wondering if what you told me initially when we started this conversation about SDR console and stuff, that might be something to look at.
Yeah, or just wait for your Christmas present from SDRPlay. Okay, I see Martin's got his hand up. Maybe we can give him.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Very welcome.
Nice to see you, Mr. Mike.
It's better to be seen than to be.
Genuinely asking for a friend, as they say, who has an RSP 1A, and I know that he likes to use a Linux environment, and he's tried one or two programs with that, but said there were some limitations, I think, with activating the built-in filtering. I didn't know if you perhaps had any comments I could pass on to him other than install Windows.
Use SDR++. The two on Linux that I'm aware of, one is Cubic, and that will definitely use the filtering. Steve, you can confirm that. And SDR++, which is completely cross-platform and bleeding edge and very good.
Yeah,
Okay.
If you use Cubic, it certainly doesn't have the same filtering capabilities that SDR Uno has. It's a very basic piece of software. When Mike mentions SDR++, that's a superb piece of software that has come out recently and is also multi-platform. It's got a lot of capabilities. I haven't even gone into them myself to really see what it's capable of. Oh, Mike's bringing his screen up. So what else? In the domain, oh, there you go. There's SDR++ for you. And I'm sure Mike's running it in Windows. I run it under Mac, but you can also run it under Linux, which is cool. Hey, you've got IFAGC on yours. I must have an old version because I was trying to figure out how to engage it earlier today. That's interesting. So that would be my recommendation. If you want something good for Linux, I think SDR++ kind of beats everything else.
Yeah.
There's also the GNU Radio stuff, GNU Radio Companion. A guy with an unpronounceable last name wrote some nice modules for the various RSPs, and that works pretty well. But boy, you've got to be a real Linux masochist, get your hands dirty and get under the hood to do it. I tried to build a very basic AM radio using it, and it took me like 3 days. I'm assuming you want stuff that you can just load it up and run it, in which case SDR++.
No, that's great. Thanks, Steve. I'll pass that on.
Yeah, that'd be great. And I also wanted to just jump back because I noticed in chat some comments came in from Ron Chandler mentioned about using OpenWebRx, which is cool. Someone else mentioned again using TeamViewer. Oh, and then someone says, will we ever see a native Mac OS version of the SDRPlay software? Yes, we will. And it will also run on Linux. And we're holding out for the end of this year to have it. So it's all good.
Perfect.
So I think we're caught up on everything there.
Can I just interject? I know people have got their hands raised. I just wanted to know, how do you notch out a station you know, when you've got like two stations and they're really close to each other and you
Mm-hmm.
just want to notch one out. How do you, I know it can be done. How do you actually achieve that?
Oh, looks like Mike's taken the ball. I was going to show you, but Mike's got
Oh,
it.
go
up
right
and
ahead.
running.
No.
No, go ahead. You're good. No, do it, Mike. It probably
All right.
won't even work for me. Although you'll do it the complicated way. I was going to show the easy way. But go ahead, Mike. This
Well,
is
if
good.
I was gonna notch out a station, so if I have two stations, one right next to another, let's see if I can find one. And they're within my filter pass band, I would enable the notch filter. So I would select notch 1. I need the EX control. I have to wait for this thing to move out of the way. Okay. And then what I would do is I would enable the notch, plop the notch in, and increase the bandwidth of the notch. This way I can make the scoop extremely wide.
Ah, right, okay.
Mike, don't confuse people by doing it that way. Do it. Just hold the engage the notch and then show how you can just graphically do it in the Alt SP there with the.
Well, that's, yeah, you would have to plop it there, holding the shift key and then
Yeah.
hitting the left mouse
There you
button.
go. There's the
But
yellow line
if-
I wanted you to show. So
But if you want to widen the scoop
yeah.
of
Oh,
that
you
notch-
widen it in that window. Yeah, but I'm saying
Yeah.
to place it, it's
Oh,
very
yeah,
easy.
yeah. You need the aux SP and the EX control panel. So these two
Yeah.
panels must be shown.
And you can do shift and get the colored lines up there, and you can do notch 1 with the left mouse click and notch 2 with the right mouse click. So,
Perfect.
so you can put those wherever you like on top of that adjacent signal, and as Mike showed you in the EXW window, you can change the width of the notch and all that good stuff.
Fantastic.
So it's very graphical using notch 1 and
Yes.
2, 3 and 4, because we only have 2 mouse buttons on most of us. You have to do that by using the little window there,
Perfect.
specifying the frequencies. But the notches are extremely narrow, and they do a super job of getting rid of any interference that's there.
Brilliant. Great. Thank you.
I think
Oh,
Mark
sorry.
and then
So
Maddie.
we've got Mark and then Matty. Yeah. So
Go ahead,
Mark,
Mark.
you're first.
Okay, good evening, everybody, and thanks for taking my question. I'm a super newbie here. I've had this for about 2 months. It's the RSPDX. It's a great receiver, a steep learning curve, and I'm having a lot of fun with it. One of the things I've been doing to kind of explore the range of what it can do is to make 4-minute recordings centered on the top of the hour, 24 hours a day at various widths and various bands and that sort of a thing. And so obviously in the scheduled mode. What I notice in particular is if I do a scheduled recording of the bottommost 2 megahertz, which of course would include the broadcast band, the AM broadcast band as we call it here in the States, and long wave, and even going up to frequencies like 3000, 3500, I'm getting a lot of spurious signals from strong local stations. And somebody told me that there was a way to improve the filtering on that, but I think that maybe you can only do that when you're not in a scheduled recording. And I'm sorry, I don't know what it's called. Can you help me out?
Steve, when you use the medium wave notch filter, if he doesn't want medium wave, or I would just use an external pre-selector if you're getting spurious images from medium wave.
Can you amplify on a little bit, because you mentioned both long wave and medium wave or AM broadcast. Which band are you interested in? The AM broadcast band?
Well, I'm actually exploring the whole lot of it, but where I'm noticing the spurious images is mostly AM signals appearing outside of the AM band. If I'm recording, let's say 0 to 3 megahertz, I see spurious signals below the AM band and above it.
Okay, now you've got an RSPDX. So the first thing I would suggest is you don't record 0 to 3 megahertz. I would get it set up so you're in HDR mode. That means you've got to be below 2 megahertz. That would be the first thing I would try. I secondly, probably, I would try and pick a range that is just wide enough to cover what you're interested in. I certainly wouldn't go down to 0. So for example, I don't know, let me see if I can share my screen here again. And, let's see what this is doing. So I'm actually running a DX here. What I would do, like if I was interested in the AM broadcast band, I would do exactly what I've done here. I'd use the medium wave preset, and that way I've got a nice big filter. Let's see, I've got an IF bandwidth of 1.2 megahertz, and that's going to cut out a lot of crud that's outside the actual broadcast band I'm interested in. Okay, and then once I've got it set up how I want it, and let me just give you another, for instance, let's say I was more interested in HF, and I doubt if I'm going to see anything to speak of here. Come on, let's go to 40 meters. And yeah, I'm not seeing anything. Now, a lot of people that do HF, they might be only interested in, let's say, the bottom part of the band, like where the FT8 and CW stuff goes on. So rather than having the entire 40-meter band displayed, and I'm looking at what, 600 megahertz of bandwidth, instead I may deselect that, and then I might go in and do some decimation there. Let's cut that down by a factor of 4. Let's go even better. Let's cut that down by a factor of 8. So now I'm looking at about 250 kilohertz of bandwidth, and that's going to cut down any crud that's coming in from outside. I would also select the notch filter on the medium wave band, and once I've done that, what I would do is I would save that as a profile. See where it says store profile down here? I've got a fresh install you're looking at here, so unfortunately you're not seeing stuff I've kept in the past, but I'm going to call this lower 40 meters or something. Okay. And I don't know if it saved it. I don't see it there. So now what I've done is I've got a profile that has, there it is. You see it down there. That's just centered on the lower part of the 40-meter band. So now if I wanted to schedule a recording, and I'm not going to go into the depths of you know, all the details you can do here, but you can set up your on-the-hour recording, and I'm assuming you're happy with that. You're going to repeat it hourly for however long. But down here, you have an option to pick a profile. And down here, I can pick that profile I just created. And so when this event kicks off, what it will do is it will reinstate that profile. So it doesn't matter what else I've done in the meantime, what other bands I went to or anything else. When that scheduled event comes around, it will pull up that profile. So when you mention, you know, maybe it only works if you're actually doing it and not when you're recording it. If you set up the receiver exactly how you want it when you're doing the recording, and once you have those settings in place, save that as a profile, and then specify that profile when you set up your schedules. And that should give you the best results.
So are you telling me then that I can use the preset bands while I'm doing a scheduled recording?
Yes.
Okay, that's confusing to me because the scheduled recording also wants me to specify the frequency that I should put in there, but that sounds like it's, yeah, go ahead.
That is when you do a scheduled recording, that's going to be your VFO frequency. Okay. So if you wanted to, for example, just make an audio recording of one particular station on the hour, you would specify that frequency there. So for example, let's see, let's create a different profile then. Let's do 40 meters. We'll take the pre-select and we will store that, and we'll just call that standard or something for argument's sake. So now we've got another preset stored, and if we go back to the scheduler, and you know, we add another event. So, you know, if you're doing a okay, you'll see the profile again. You'll see the choice of either that lower band that we just defined ourselves, or the standard 40-meter preset. And when it asks for the VFO frequency, in this case, 7.15 is defaulted to the center of the band. But if we were doing just an audio recorder function, okay, then we would specify the frequency of the signal we wanted to record. On the other hand, if you want to do an IQ recording, so instead of function being play, we'll do IQ record, okay, that VFO function doesn't, or that VFO frequency doesn't really mean anything, because what it's going to do is it's going to record the band as defined by our profile, which will be the standard 40-meter band. So when that kicks off, it's going to record that span there from about 7 megahertz up to 7.3. So the profiles is an extremely powerful feature, and essentially anything you set up in the receiver, whether it's the bandwidth or the filtering or the modes or you name it, everything you set it up as, when you save a profile, you've saved all those settings. So when you use it in the scheduler, if you specify that profile, it will bring up exactly those same settings again.
Great, thank you very much.
Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
We've now got Matty, OH7RX. Matty, do you want to ask your question?
Good evening, everybody. I am
Automatic.
a Linux user mostly. I've also used this SDR Uno. I now want to ask if anyone have used RSP Duo and tried to record IQ signal as in phase coherent mode. So I want to record phase coherent signal, and then after that I want to calculate some things like direction finding for any kind of Doppler effects I see in the recording.
I personally haven't. I don't know, Steve, if you've done anything. I'm going to take a quick peek. I think in GNU.
As soon as I heard Linux, I kind of groaned inwardly.
I'm going to do a quick search.
Yeah, I think I don't believe SDR++ has got any diversity stuff built into it right now. So I don't think you can use that. What I would look at is GNU Radio Companion and see if Frank, what's his last name?
Tori, I think.
No, the great long name, Notmanfelder something or other. He wrote the source modules for the RSPs. I believe that he did one for the RSP Duo. Now, whether or not, I'm pretty sure, because also anything that uses SOAPy, I think, because SOAPy SDR does, when it finds an RSP Duo, it shows up as 4 devices. So again, Maddie, I don't know what you're doing on Linux, but if you are trying to develop some software to do direction finding or whatever, if it uses SOAPy SDR, some of the information you need is already available if you use SOAPy.
Yeah, that is what I'm looking for. I'm currently using this GNU Radio Companion for single.
Is there not a source module for the RSP Duo?
I have not seen yet. I've not made it working for dual tuner mode.
Okay.
I can work only in single.
Let me.
It's shown. I popped it in chat in the chat. The Duo is definitely there, and I put the GitHub.
Yeah, let me show you something real quick. Mike, keep
okay,
talking.
nice. I'm looking for that. I think I tried that like 6 months ago last time. And
Okay, let me see the last time he did a commit. Last month. So this was updated. The GRC source blocks was a month ago.
yeah, and I was checking like 6 months ago.
Okay, I'm not very familiar with Linux or its inner workings, but I believe that this is what you want.
Yeah, I
looks
want it. I can use it in GNU Radio. That is like a.
Oh, if that solves your problem, then I won't waste your time showing the other. But I was going to just boot up a Duo ready for Cubic and show you the 4 devices that SOAPy displays when you do that.
Yeah, I was looking for SOAPy. I have not yet tested it, but I was reading it a bit, and I was thinking that I cannot use directly the module of RSP Duo in GNU Radio. I need to use some kind of
Yeah,
Soapy
if you got the
and
models in Canoe Radio, you're good. Like I say, Soapy is aware of the two tuners and does give you the option of which mode you want to use. So like I say, it shows up as 4 separate devices, and you can use it that way. But well, actually, Mike is a bit of a programmer, but certainly not a Linux programmer. He's
Me
more
no.
of a Python guy, but I'm certainly not a programmer.
well, I
And,
like Python.
Love it.
I'm a Mac user, and you have to drag me kicking and screaming to even get me to open a terminal window and put commands in.
Maddie, sorry, Steve. Maddie, I put a link to the Groups IO for SDRPlay users, the Groups IO link. Franco is very active in there. So if you have any questions with the GNU blocks or anything like that, don't hesitate to hop on that independent forum and post a question. He will definitely get right back to you.
Okay, thanks.
Franco's a bit of a
Cool.
demon on Linux. I would always defer to him because he's really on top of it. But I still can't remember the name of the guy that did the source blocks for the new radio companions, Frank somebody or other. And but he was kind enough to devise those source blocks, and I have nothing but admiration for people that can, like I say, get their hands dirty and roll up their sleeves and get under the hood and do wonderful things in Linux, but it's way beyond my capabilities.
Yeah, it's just so if I had like 2 or 3 receivers, maybe 100 kilometers apart, I could spot any location of any radio signal. That is my goal. That I will.
Yeah, that should be possible.
Yeah, but I also saw the recording in SDR Juno. Is there also possible to record this coherent signal, or is it only for?
No, it's per tuner.
Per
So
tuner?
if you're a duo, if you're running a duo, no. If you're doing an IQ recording,
The answer is no.
Okay, I will do my best with Linux because I like
will not record a coherent data stream that you can process afterwards. That's the short answer.
Okay, I will continue with new radio.
I've got another question before we go to Mark. Can you demonstrate the noise reduction and noise blanker feature on there?
Steve, do you want me to do it or do you want to do it?
I want you to do it, Mike, because you like playing with the noise reduction features. I will just caution people while you're bringing it up that I normally just click the buttons that say NR and NB for noise reduction, noise blanking, which Mike will now demonstrate. I will give a word of caution to new users, because I've had this show up as a support ticket a few times. When you open up that EX control panel that Mike loves, I never have it shown up on my screen. That's the difference between Mike and me. Mike is a power user. I'm just a regular grunt that points and clicks, right? So I always keep this EX control window closed. It is possible to make changes to the noise settings in that window that will give you absolutely no signal.
No signal.
And you know, the solution is quite simple. Just turn off the noise blanking and the noise reduction, and all is well again. And but people have been confused. I say, suddenly I don't see any signals, and you go in and you look, and they've got those sliders all the way one way or the other, and nothing results.
Just like it's showing right now on the
there you go,
screen.
just
So
like that.
if I crank the noise blanker threshold all the way to the left, it will wipe out the spectrum. But just make sure that the noise blanker is off. There's 2 noise blankers. There's a wide and a narrow. When I have wideband noise, which I have here, I'm going to enable, let me put this back to the default. The EX control panel has to be shown, and the slider to control the noise blanker is in the EX control panel labeled as NB, noise blanker. So I'll enable the wideband one, and already it took care of a good chunk of the noise. If you look on the bottom, see all that wideband noise is gone. If I turn it off, it's back on. You do very, very slight, incremental or decremental adjustments, very slight, and listen to the audio, because that's very, very important. You're looking at it visually here, but the audio is just as important also. So if I put it back to its default, which I think is 190 something, and let's enable it, and then I'll just ever so slightly nudge it. Yep, right there is perfect. Less is more when it comes to the noise blanker.
Okay.
And as you can see there, if there were signals there, I would be able to resolve them, meaning I would be able to hear the audio without any issues. If I can find something, let's see, this might be in the noise. So let's just bring this up a hair. That's a head. There's really nothing on. Here's something here. All right, let's disable the noise blinker. Now, I would never know that there was a signal there. Let's zoom in a bit. Okay. You see a slight carrier right over here. We have no idea what it is. But once I enable the noise blinker, I'm able to see, well, I know that that's noise. That's definitely not. That looks like it could be a carrier, but it's buried within the noise. So the noise blinker,
it's really good.
So that's one option. And then you have noise reduction, which is for the audio that you hear. So let me unmute. Let me find this a good station. Actually, I can do it with medium wave. And if I'm going too fast for anybody, or if you don't understand what I'm showing, you don't have to raise your hand. Just interrupt and I'll do it all over again. So there's a station out of Cuba. I'm in Florida. It's 5:30. So let me just tune to that real quick. Let me unmute. Can you guys hear the audio?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Let me get my EX control back. Let me lower that. All right, I need the EX control because I'm going to adjust the noise reduction here, NR.
We believe you, Mike. It sounds quite Cuban.
What? Say that again?
We believe you. It sounds quite Cuban.
Oh, okay. All right, so it's a little bit scratchy. It just got rid of the top end hiss. And now I'm going to further adjust it. There's no top end hiss.
You can see the effect on the waterfall as you move that adjustment.
Now, another trick, especially if you're DXing HF, any AM transmission, is to use the SAW filter here. And the FC is a frequency cutoff. So I can demonstrate that also. And it really brings out that signal with noise reduction. Big difference.
Wow. Yeah, huge.
Any questions regarding that? Did I lose anybody?
No.
I think you did a good job, Mike. I liked it.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
thanks.
And next question.
So we've got a question from Mark.
Yeah, I just got to get back to my screen. Let me stop sharing. Okay.
Sorry, I was looking for the unmute button. We were talking a couple of minutes ago about the about programming and that kind of thing. I think I noticed that there is something of an API available for SDR Uno.
Mhm.
I couldn't make much sense out of it. I have been a professional programmer, most recently Python, but I've also done C, C++ professionally. What I was wondering is there a way for me to write my own utility functions and add them into SDR Uno? Like a very simple example of what I was thinking about is something that if you stay tuned to a certain frequency for long enough and there's a signal there, it will actually make an automatic log entry for the time you're listening to the frequency and, you know, all the statistics that it can gather in there. First of all, is there a way of doing something like that? And just the broader question is there any source code available that I can look at that would be helpful in getting started with writing add-ins?
Steve, do you want me to answer or do you want to answer?
I can at least start answering it. The full API specification for Uno is available for download from SDRplay.com, and it documents all the functions of SDR Uno, and you're free to use that as your guide for writing whatever software you want. Is there source code available? No, we keep the source code to ourselves, and that's not going to change. As regards your specific example of being on a station for a certain length of time, the way to do that would be to use the plugin system. And I don't know, Mike, do you want to put up?
I would go a different route. Since I'm not a C developer and I do stuff in Python, I would write a Python script that would parse the signal, because I can get the signal from the Kenwood serial commands. When it goes over a certain threshold, then start recording and logging, or place a log. I would do it in Python,
Yeah.
Me personally, but you can
No,
100% do
that.
it in a plugin.
But the only reason I mentioned the plugin system is because that's the kind of application that it was designed for.
Absolutely.
And, we've got a lot of features in SDR Uno, and a lot of our users come up with good ideas for features they would like. And it became very clear that we could either spend our entire programming resource in implementing one feature or another for everybody, or we could forge ahead and use it instead to make this thing multi-platform, which is what we really want to do, and build into it a system that enables third parties to go in and add capabilities. And just for grins, Mike, while I'm speaking, would you queue up Fran or something as a demo?
Sure.
And the plugin system was designed specifically to allow third parties to go in, make API calls to the software, and do all sorts of really cool things. And the plugin system is documented, and a number of third parties have already jumped on the bandwagon and developed some really useful plugins. What Mike's showing you here is something called Fran for Frequency Annotator, and it basically accesses the database. And then when you see signals on the waterfall, it will tell you who those broadcasters are, which is really cool. And if you take those databases, you can also throw them into memory banks, and you'll find that often the same frequency is used by different broadcasters at different times of day. There's a big block right there, and you can kind of look at what's in the memory bank and see which particular broadcaster might be active at a given time. So that's one way of doing it. And you could certainly develop a plugin to do what you described, or like Mike said, he's really getting into this Python stuff, and you could use the API in conjunction with Python to get where you need to be. That's my simplistic answer. Mike, do you want to add to that?
Can I just clarify my question? I understand that the source code for SDR Uno proper, you're not going to make that open source, and that's fine, of course. What I was really wondering is there any sample code that would get me started with writing any kind of plugins or other things that use the API?
It's in the chat. I linked you to our GitHub page, which should have an example using Visual Studio.
Terrific. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Yeah, that would have been a much shorter answer, wouldn't it? But maybe the full answer was a benefit to some of the other people listening, I hope. Okay. Did anyone else have their hand up?
No, nobody did. I'm aware that you've only got about 5 minutes. Is that right, Mike?
Yes. Roughly.
That's the plan, but if you come up with some really good questions, we may stick around a bit longer.
Yeah, no worries. Okay.
Did anybody, well, before we sign out, I'm hopeful that there is going to be a continuation, that we'll do this again maybe in a month. You guys see who did join us but didn't ask questions, you see how this is run. It's very informal. We do hands-on, and we try to demonstrate the answer by sharing the screen. So if you guys don't have any questions this time around, maybe the next time, I hope you guys join us again. I see Steve. Steve has a question.
Steve's got a question.
I noticed that a lot of users like the loop antennas, different types. Does the height of a loop antenna make a difference? Is there a plus or minus to having it 5 foot versus 10 foot off the ground?
Not that I'm aware of.
Also, how directional are they?
Very directional.
I'm
sorry, we're talking about loops? I missed the first part.
Yes, loop antennas.
Yeah, I think Mike Harwood in the UK there had done some videos comparing various magnetic loops. I thought he also did some experimentation with height, but I think if anything, they work better closer to the ground. I know I have a loop on my fence, so it's about 6 feet up, but I don't think there's anything to be gained by putting it much higher than that.
Does everyone mind if I chip in here?
Yeah.
It's Roger, by the way. The club I belong to, Brats we know ourselves as, has gone a little bit loopy lately. And amongst others, I'm in the process of building one for Top Band. As I understand it, and I haven't tried this myself, but I've read it in quite a few places, if you have your magnetic loop reasonably high, you get a very good null at the side. So it's quite directional. As you bring it down towards the ground, the pattern tends to flatten, and so the nulls become filled in.
Really?
That's as I understand it. Take it for what it's worth. It's just hearsay. So
no, that's
my loop's on the ground, and when I turn it, I definitely do see a null. Now I don't know if it's the pattern is flattened because I'm on the ground versus would the null be even greater if I was higher up? I don't know.
As I understand it, as I say, this is hearsay. If your height of your loop was higher, your nulls would be deeper.
Deeper, okay. I have no
I
way
think
of
they would
testing
also
it.
be wider. You know, I mean, like most people, what I'm actually interested in building a loop for is the fact I've got very small real estate. So that's the direction. So
you know what I found when I first got a loop antenna, I was using a random wire before that, and I had it as high as I could feasibly do at the time, and I got a lot of local broadcast stations that are pretty strong, and I would pick up all sorts of QRM all over the place. And as soon as I got that loop up out there, all the QRM mysteriously went away, which was wonderful. And it's actually located, you know, not far away from anything. It's between my house and my neighbor's house, which is due east of me. And it made a huge difference. And HF suddenly became a lot more feasible and enjoyable. For me, again, you raise an interesting comment about the nulls. I've always been less interested in the nulls than in the direction of the plane, of the signals I want to receive.
okay.
And those, again, I think Mike had some plots up there, but the reception area is they're quite broad, but the nulls tend to be narrower. So I'm more concerned with pointing the loop so that I get a real good signal. In fact, I don't even have a rotator on mine. I just usually leave it fixed, and the beam width is wide enough. I don't have to mess with it. So I've never really felt I had to go in and actually rotate the thing to try and find a good null, because I've not really found myself in a situation where I have a strong station I want to get rid of. Let's put it that way.
Same here.
But while you're being loopy, I'll tell you what would be really cool is get a second loop, mount one in the vertical plane and the other one in the horizontal plane, and then feed them into the two tuners on an RSP Duo and have a lot of fun.
Okay.
With the diversity tuning, that would be really cool. And you know, it is very feasible even without needing a ton of real estate.
Okay. Thanks for that.
No, thanks for the input, because again, I've always found antenna theory somewhat fuzzy to me. It's, as far as I'm concerned, it's all black magic.
Yeah, it's black magic. I was just going to say that.
It's definitely black magic. I lived in my working days when I was at Texas Instruments back in England. Right next to us was the VHF projects lab. And at the time, I think they were developing circuits for Motorola. Were using them for, I think, police radios, mobile police radios that they put on their motorbikes and stuff. And I'd go in and I'd ask these people what they were doing, and they'd show me these weird antennas they were building out of circuit board traces and stuff. And it's like, this is weird stuff. I don't want to have anything to do with it, you know. So that was where I got immediately lost, and instead I just, you know, live through what other people do. I mean, some people are really good antenna engineers, and they know all sorts of good stuff, and we're lucky because there are a lot of good published designs for making your own loop.
Yeah.
And you know, I've tried. I've got an MFJ loop up permanently. I more recently acquired a cross-country wireless loop, where I'm not actually doing a loop. I've made a diamond-shaped wire cage for it, which I'm playing with. I'm also experimenting with smaller diameter loops just to see, you know, they're really good for if you're confined to barracks, as it were. And you know, I know Mike did a video. He was using his loop inside in his ground floor apartment there by the window, and got pretty good results out of that. So it's possible, but I wouldn't have believed before I experienced it firsthand how good a loop antenna can be.
Yep, I 100% agree.
You know,
For my design, I'm using two calculators. One is the Pacific 66 calculator, and the other one is on VK3 CPU. Now they give slightly different results. So although I aim to go to top band eventually, I'm actually going to build a 20 and 40 meter small loop, smaller version, to see how close the calculators match up and which is the most reliable. And that's literally where I'm at now.
sounds great.
Yeah.
I'm all for you loopy people doing that.
Yeah. Just for background, I'm a ex-PMR engineer, mainly worked in VHF, UHF, and a bit up to microwave. And
well, there you are. You're one of those weird people.
I am. And I would love to see that. Was it Motorola, your place? Because I worked on police and fire station, fire brigade radio.
Well, I was actually working at Texas Instruments, and they were building modules for Motorola, the Motorola radio people.
Okay.
So they would take our modules and build it into a finished, you know, mobile radio setup.
Yeah, sounds good to me.
But yeah, I mean, all power to you. It's like, you know, it's kind of neat, and when you look at the hobby, all the different areas of specialty people have. You know, we've got some coding type people that love writing software and stuff like that. Then we got people that love building different antennas and checking them out and all that kind of stuff. And I feel kind of limited because all I do is I just use it as a radio and listen.
I'm sure you got your own gifts, but thanks, guys.
Thank you
for the presentation.
Welcome.
Got
All
any
right, we
more
want
hands?
to take Bruce.
I see Bruce. Yeah, Bruce.
Hello, good evening. I've found this session really good. I just got one question. I bought my RSP last week.
Oh, congratulations.
Just been fiddling about with it. I'm an ex-network engineer. I want to know, is there a quick way of resetting the default settings on SDRUno? When I played with it and done it all wrong, is there a quick way of putting everything back to?
Yeah, I can show you that. Let's see. Do I still have anything connected? Mike will probably jump in and say, bear with me. I got to remember, I got to share my screen again. Oh, good. It's still working. Okay, let's share screen. There we go. And let's pick this. Okay, that's one of the nice things about SDRUno is, you know, when people get it and they've got all these windows and stuff and they've messed everything up and they don't know what's going on. If you go to the options button up here in the main window, upper left, there's a reset to default settings right there. And I'll hit it. What it'll do is it will say, you sure you want to reset it? And it will say, okay, I'm resetting. It closes down and then it restarts. and you'll find everything has gone back to normal. So you'll find it's tuned to 3.5 megahertz and everything's cool. Actually, it went back to 7.15. It did remember my old settings. You know, you don't lose your memory banks and all that kind of stuff, which is kind of cool. But everything else just gets reset. Is that what you were looking for?
That's exactly what I was looking for, Steve. Thank you.
And the other thing, while you're up on the options thing here, is there is an option to restart the API, although that's normally not an issue. Enable auto start means that it will start running as soon as you start it. There's auto layout. Sometimes people just get their layouts messed up, and you can always go back and do default, and it will just arrange the windows on the screen nicely for you. And the other thing is the user manual. You already have a user manual there, so if you click on that, it will open it up in your web browser. Okay.
Right, super.
So there's lots of cool stuff there, and that makes it easy. So you can see I've got a very simple layout here. I've just got the basic main window, the RS control window, the main spectrum, and the auxiliary spectrum. It found room for the memory panel, but I don't really need that to start off with. So I could, you know, I could rearrange it a little bit and just have a bigger spectrum window if that's what you want. You'll notice that one thing I do not have is Mike's favorite, that dreaded EX control window that he loves so much. I keep that safely hidden. So, you know, if I wanted to save this layout, I could do save workspace, pick workspace 1, and now I've got a new workspace. So I've actually selected it. If I right click on it, I can call it test or whatever I want to call it. So now I've got a choice. I can either go back to the default, which we had before, or I can click on here and go to my test workspace, and I have the bigger spectrum. And you can save a whole bunch of different workspaces. So
very interesting. It's very reaching features, and I'm enjoying playing about with it.
yeah, I mean, if you know, you ever get stuck and want to reset, you can. But the nice thing is, because the windows are all modular, you can start with a very simple screen like I just showed you. And I just noticed that, sorry. You can start with a basic window like that, and then you can introduce additional windows as you want to get into the features. You can bring up the memory panel and learn how to use that. You can learn how to import the EIBI database if you're into shortwave listening, stuff like that. You can bring up the scheduler window and learn how to make schedules, recordings like we discussed earlier. Anyway, I hope that answers your question. I see Martin came in and put something in chat. He goes, that's lucky enough, if you're lucky enough to have hardware that supports Windows 11. And what I wanted to do at this point is share my screen again. And let's pick this. So you can't tell from here, but I'm actually running Windows 11 in a virtual machine on my Mac. And the funny story here is my day-to-day machine I use for checking out SDRuno and stuff like that is an HP laptop running Windows 10, because it won't run Windows 11 because Microsoft says it's not worthy of running Windows 11. On the other hand, this is my 2012 Mac Mini that I'm running this on, and I'm running Fusion virtual machine, and I upgraded to Windows 11 with no problem. So I kind of find it humorous that I can't actually run Windows 11 on my Windows Intel hardware, but I can run it on my Mac. I found it humorous anyway.
That's actually very interesting, Steve, because I tried exactly the same running last week, running Windows 11 within a VM.
Yeah, it works very well.
I tried it on an Intel Windows box, and it refused. I haven't tried it on my Mac box yet, but I'll try that.
You know, my 2012 Mac Mini that I'm on right now is pretty tricked out, but I also have an M1 Mac Mini I got more recently, and that's even better. I've been running, you have to run Parallels VM on that because that's the only thing that will run in, I run Windows 11 and I'm running Windows 11 and I'm using actually a beta version of the new API, which should be coming out soon. And it screams. So when I'm running SDR Uno on the Mac M1, I'm actually able in a virtual machine to get the full 10 megahertz of bandwidth, which is the highest load you can put on the hardware when you're running SDR Uno. And that's pretty cool. So who says which VM? Like I say, the one I've been showing today is Fusion, running on an Intel Mac. On my M1 Mac, I run Parallels. Actually, I run Fusion on there also, but I run Parallels for when I want to run the Windows stuff because there's not much in the way of Windows drivers right now. It's unfortunate. I prefer Fusion, and the simple reason being I have to have multiple machines here, and Fusion lets me install it on multiple machines. Parallels only lets you install it on one machine. You can kind of transfer your license to a different machine, but then if you want to transfer it back, then you have to call them up and have them allow it to happen. And I like to keep the VM both on my Mac Mini on my desktop and also on my MacBook when I'm traveling. So anyway, that's it.
Steve, did you say that's you got it a 2012 Mac Mini?
Yeah.
Strict out. Okay.
Yeah.
I've got.
Yeah, it's got a solid state drive and everything on it.
Yeah.
I can't get it beyond Catalina, so it's stuck on Catalina.
Right. I've got a Mac Mini 2014 model that you can't upgrade the RAM on apparently, but I've got an SSD in it. I've only just done that, and it seems to be. I prefer Macs than PCs.
That's my day-to-day machine, and you'll be able to run like SDR++ on it. Actually, that's the reason why I got the 2012 instead of a 2014 was, like you say, there's no upgradable RAM option in it.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until recently that they introduced new one. Now the M1 screens, but you know we're just now getting Windows drivers and stuff, but it's kind of a mess because Microsoft seems to be discouraging people running Windows 11 VMs or at least ARM VMs. Let's put it that way. Yeah. It's a long, convoluted story. Now Parallels has gone ahead and done a Mac VM. Fusion has just kind of washed their hands of it.
Right.
But,
I have to, sorry to interrupt you guys. I have to drop because I have to daughter's meeting with the teacher. So if anybody has anything specific that they wanted to ask me before I drop off, if not, then I hope that we can definitely do this again. Steve, I don't know if you want to stay on or.
I just wanted to. I got another comment from Griff here about Total Recorder, which is software I don't know anything about. And my question is the issue with it won't run on Windows 11, or is the issue that you can't run it in a virtual machine running Windows? So Griff, if you're there, can you enlighten us, unmute and tell us what's going on? Are you familiar with Total Recorder, Mike?
No, I use the audio recorder in Uno.
Okay. So why don't you go away, Mike? I'll let you say goodbye and get to school.
All right, guys. Thank you very much for having me. It was good seeing everyone. And like I said, hopefully, Andy, you can possibly do another one in a month's time.
Yeah, I will do, of course. Yeah. Cheers, Mike. Thanks very much for your time. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Mike.
Cheers, Mike.
Bye.
Thanks.
Oh, and there was a couple questions where my banks are. If you go to SDRPlay, just Google SDRPlay ham guides. All of my frequency banks are there for everyone to download. SDRPlay ham guides. And there's a zip file there. So when I was doing the demos, you saw all the frequency banks. Those are all free.
Yeah.
So you guys are more than welcome to take them. All right. I'll see you guys in the next one.
Thanks, Mike.
All right. Bye-bye. Cheers, everyone.
Cheers.
Hey, blue screen of death lives on, huh? Yeah, Griff, I can't help you about that. Like other people have commented, I can't wait till SDR Uno becomes native on the Mac, and I'm just happy I can run it in a VM in the meantime.
Mm-hmm. But that's going to be a good Christmas present, you say, Steve?
Should be.
Perfect.
All being well. there's actually, I mean, you know, it may appear that there's not much going on at SDRPlay, but trust me, there is a ton of software development going on. There's a new API which is going to come out in conjunction with version 1.42, and I don't have an exact date on that, but that's coming out here pretty soon. There's a whole slew of stuff going on for the Mac community in terms of a new API for that works both on Intel and M1 Macs. Like I said, the new API for Windows that will work on ARM Windows machines as well. So if you've got a recent Surface tablet that's ARM based, you'll be able to run Uno on that. There's stuff going along in conjunction with the new API I mentioned for the Mac to make the version for Linux available as well. I mean, there is just a ton of development work going on, and I don't know, our programming guy, our lead guy, as you probably know, Andy, he's got the same name as you. His name's Andy as well.
Yeah. He's only about less than 8 miles from where I.
Yeah, I was going to say he must be nearby to you.
He is. Yeah.
I try and avoid disturbing him. I don't know when the guy sleeps. I swear sometimes he must fall asleep in his chair in front of the monitors because he's the busiest person I've ever met, and you know, and yet if an issue comes up and I have to go to him, he always responds to me, which is nice. He's always got time for you, and yet, you know, if I was him, I would have just pulled all my hair out and jumped off the cliffs of Dover or something. You know, his workload is absolutely phenomenal, and you know, those of us that actually use Uno and any of the other OS derivatives, we owe him an enormous debt of gratitude for what he's done for us so far. If you've been around for a while and remember when the RSP1 came out, we didn't even have any of our own software.
No,
it was all HD SDR and SDR console. And then we bought the rights to what was it called? SDR Studio One it was called, written by an Italian guy. We bought the rights to that and started tweaking it so it was very clean, working with the RSPs. And when you get to look at where it's come since then, I mean, all the stuff that's been added, the memory panel functionality, the record functionality, the scheduler, the scanner, and all that stuff. And, you know, so far, everything we've done still works on the original RSP1 hardware that was obsoleted 5 years ago or more. So it's like when you buy the hardware, you don't have to worry about obsolescence. It just keeps, you know, we just keep upgrading the software and supporting everything. And I guess, to be honest with you, I've got to say that is not going to hold true when we get to SDR Uno 2.0. At that point, we will have to drop support for the original RSP1. The RSP1A is still supported. The RSP-DX will still be supported. The RSP Duo, even the RSP2, which is obsolete now. And the only reason we dropped the RSP1 is because, I don't know if you've noticed, when you open up Uno, if you look at the splash screen or bring up the about, you can read the serial number of the device. And the reason you can read the serial number is because it's hard coded into EEPROM inside the product. Well, the original RSP1 didn't have any EEPROM in it. And some of the new features that are coming out with SDR Uno 2.0 depend on having some EEPROM to play with.
Right.
And that's the only reason that we're not supporting it anymore. But RSP1 will still have 1.42, and that comes out soon. That will still support the RSP1, and that'll be the end of the road for it. But I tell you, if you bought that thing for, what was it, £100 or something?
100, yeah.
A few years back, you have got a hell of a lot of mileage out of that little black box. And you know, maybe it's time for you to buy a new box to help us fund future development, you know. But we try not to leave people out. In fact, I think Uno right now still runs on Windows XP. I haven't tried it lately, but last time I looked, it still does. I know the latest version of console doesn't. Simon dropped support for XP. But as far as I know, Uno still runs on XP, Windows 7, Windows 8, Windows 10, and soon Windows 11. Well, it will run on Windows 11 on Intel boxes right now.
Brilliant.
Okay, so I guess we're past time. Is there anything else I can tell anybody, or? I guess we'll put the burden on you, Andy.
Yeah,
if anyone has anything, contact you, we'll pass it on. Mr. Mike's still there.
Mr. Mike, yeah, we've got last question from Mr. Mike.
I'm back, actually. I was hauled away for something else. Do these units require firmware updates or anything like that?
Nope, never.
Never, okay.
Everything we've always done has been within the SDR Uno program itself. As far as I know, there's not even the option to do a firmware update in the traditional sense.
I must say, I really find these things quite miraculous little boxes. As I told you before, I'm into older equipment. I have a pair of R390As with the dual diversity receiving adapter, and that is in a rack 19 inches by 36 inches high. My SDR Play Duo does the same thing, and I hold it in the palm of my hand. It's absolutely incredible.
Yeah, well, the Brit guys there all know. I started off with a Raycal RA17. Was my first shortwave receiver, and I listened to shortwave for years, and then I kind of moved away from that, and I was into TV receive only stuff over satellite, and I hobbied with that. And then when John Hudson came along and dragged me into SDRPlay, I started playing with that, and of course I started listening to shortwave, and I was listening to HF. And then I realized that, you know, these things go all the way up to 2 gigahertz. So I started looking at VHF and looked at airband and looked at the 2 meter band. And then I carried on up into the UHF, and there was utility companies and police people using that around here. And then I found that I could use that little discone I had up on the chimney, and I could pick up transponders directly from aircraft, ADS-B transponders at 1 gigahertz. And then I discovered that I could use that in conjunction with virtual radar server. And the next thing you know, I'm plotting aircraft flying out of DFW airport as they fly overhead on my computer. And I'm picking up, you know, directly from their transponders. And then I found that the amateur radio community, while I'd been gone, they were off developing digital modes. And there was things like FT8 and all that stuff. And then I found I could start decoding that, and that was another little thing to check out. And then I got a Kenwood transceiver to play with, and figured out how to make pan adapters with that. And you know, it's a Kenwood TS590SG, super little radio, but no graphical display whatsoever, just a frequency readout. And then when I found I could actually look at the entire band on my screen and click on a signal and make the radio go to that frequency, it's like, this is magic, you know. And all this work was done with basically an RSP-1A. So that was selling on sale over here in the US for about $100. And I'm thinking, what else could you get for $100 that could do so much? You know, it absolutely blows my mind that, you know, what we can do with the stuff that's out there now. And I'm so glad that John called me into SDRPlay, because it's been a fun experience. Hope it goes on a long time.
I can tell you from, you know, running Hamfests, and somebody, something like that, that's the most perfect door prize that I can think to give anybody interested in radio. It's very hard to find good door prizes, you know, for Hamfest, and we get a couple thousand people coming to our event, and we're known for giving out good door prizes. We used to give IC 7300s. We've even given away Elecraft K3s, KX3s. Those are serious money, but these things are just, I can't think of a better door prize, to tell you the truth.
Well, the other thing is, you know, a lot of people get local Boy Scout groups and stuff involved with that, the amateur radio stuff. And any club, you know, could make an inexpensive donation of one of these boxes to the Scouts and let them play with it, you know. And we've seen that happen to a number of organizations over here, and it's a great way to get kids started.
Oh yeah, well, we're very interested in getting young people involved in the hobby. We fund a scholarship through the ARRL Foundation, and we've done other things too. We did a youth tech trek. Well, you've been up to Deerfield, so you've seen the setup there. got a lot of buildings we can.
I was
have.
in that one of the big old log cabins. It was awesome.
Yeah, it was. Those are used during the fair for
Yeah.
commercial exhibits, and there's no heat in the buildings. Though, if you come up here in October, it can be chilly. But we had a nice crowd this weekend. I'm still recovering. It's Tuesday now. It's Monday actually, and I got home Saturday night. We're Friday, Saturday, and it was a very, very nice weekend. Good flea market, good exhibits, good speakers. You know, the whole thing. It was just.
I enjoyed it. You know, when I was up there before, had a lot of fun up there. Real nice crew there, nice setting, and everything else.
Yeah, I think you were here in 17.
Was it that long ago? I don't remember.
Well, it was before COVID because we've only done one. We did
the
one in
last show I
October.
did was in 2019 was Hamcation down in Orlando, Florida, and it was also the first show since COVID I did when I went there in February this year.
Well,
and
we're glad to be back with it, although it's changed the whole world. And anyways, I won't keep you folks. Thank you again.
Tell you one thing. If you wanted to come up with a hobby that promoted social distancing, amateur radio's got to be it, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Right.
Well, it's the first form of you talk about social networking and stuff like that.
Mhm.
Amateur radio was the first one.
So it's all good.
That's right.
It's
One
all good.
wavelength at 144 megahertz.
What about 144?
That's one wavelength away you've got to keep.
Oh, okay. Yeah, there you go.
2 meters.
I never thought about it that way. So you see the people carrying around their little handhelds to see if they're the right distance.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Right, guys, I'm going to just stop the recording for a moment now.
Okay. Well, I got to go too, and I'd like to thank everybody that